everyone. Welcome to All Things Indian, Friendly Voices. This is episode 7. Today we are going to discuss a topic which is slightly, which is little away from what we have been discussing in the earlier episodes. If one looks back at the human history, human beings have always been securing something, saving for the future. If it is winter is coming, rainy season is coming, they have been securing something. Whether it's even before they started settling in as a society, as a community, in huts. Even before then, even hunter-gatherer societies, they have been securing, saving for the future. The only thing that has changed in the present circumstances is that whatever, if I visualize, if I see something, that I have to have something for, let's say, 6 months down the line, a year down the line. Even if it is some kind of educational qualification, it involves money. So basically, any kind of securing for the future, saving for the future, it involves money. So how to financially secure our future? That is what we are going to discuss, and we have two very good friends with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Rajmohan. And let me have the pleasure of welcoming Visesh and Manoj to the show. Hi, welcome Visesh and welcome Manoj.
Yes, sir.
So let me first start by introducing you to Visesh. Now, before I introduce him, I have to say something like in Andhra, there is this fashion of having a lot of letters as your, initials. Because, you have NSVKSP Prasad or something like that. Generally, they end up calling the person, A to Z Prasad, because you don't know what are the it's something like same with Visesh on the number of, the titles that he holds. You have to call him as A to Z Visesh. So he's an ACA, he's an ACMA, he's a GCMA, he's a ACFE and RV. So many of them, I think, will be very new to you. You'll have to look up what they mean, but you get an idea that this is a very impressive profile. Now, Visesh is basically looking into things like valuations of companies, forensic audits. He's also into financial planning and consulting, something that he's going to talk about today. Visesh basically loves new ideas. And even if there are some old process to be implemented, he tries to implement it in a new way. The next participant in our session today is Manoj. And if Visesh is A to Z, Manoj is A to W sort of a thing, because he's also an FCA, DISA and RV. Visesh is from Chennai and Manoj is from Bangalore. Manoj also looks at valuations. He's doing statutory audits. He's into consulting. And he has a keen interest in equities. And he also loves a good comeback, which makes me think that he's probably a big fan of Shahid Afridi. So to start our session, let me ask Rajmohan to begin this.
Yeah.
Over to you, Rajmohan.
Yeah. So basically, we'll start with you, Vishesh. All of us know right from childhood, piggy bank, and okay. So what does it mean really? What are the things that one has to do when one starts thinking of saving for the future?
Right. So first thing to understand is there are two things in life which make money. One is money itself, money and other assets you own, which can generate you income. The second thing is your effort. Now, most of us are in the middle spectrum. At least the people who will be watching this video are in the middle spectrum, where they are neither too poor, where they are living in a hand-to-mouth sustenance, nor are they extremely super rich. We are all in the middle category, where we have some small assets which maybe our parents have given, or maybe we have somehow or the other managed to save and accumulate over a period of time. But we mostly earn our money by our own efforts, right? Where we work as an employee somewhere, or whether we are working in our own small businesses, or have a consulting like Mr. Suresh does. right? So we have our different ways of earning money. Now, first thing to realize is that we need to start building with whatever money we make. We need to start building certain small assets, as we call it, which will start giving us more money. The idea is by putting in my effort as Visesh, I'm generating certain sum of money. And now with this money, either by directly investing this money or by buying some asset with this money, I intend to earn something more. Now, this is called passive income, is what we call this. By building more and more passive income during our years when we are able to put in effort, we start saving and we start building our wealth. So saving as a concept is nothing, but we need to first understand that earning is the one part of it. If you are already having some money or if you are putting in your effort to earn some money, that is the first part. The second part is to understand how we are going to deploy whatever we have got to have a better return in the future and to secure our future, so to speak. Today, we are looking at an average life expectancy of around 80 years. I think in another 20 years, many of us in my generation, when we grow, it might be up to 100 years. So we still traditionally think about retiring at 60, 65, 70. So there's another 30 to 40 years where we need to live, if nothing. So it is not just trying to say, I will try to build a nest and become the next Ambani. It's great to think. But more importantly, it is for ensuring in the long run, we live a comfortable life. People who are dependent on us, they have a comfortable life. And how do we ease that as we grow older and have to meet our life goals?
Yeah.
Manoj, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, a couple of things to add on. Basically, today what is happening, as we increasingly see, is that we are all starting to take our income earning capacity for granted. Like I have a couple of clients, so I expect that all the clients will do well. Or I'm in a corporate job, so I expect, where something like this pandemic situation comes in, and suddenly we are shown light, and the reality is kicking us in. So maybe what we need is a bit of going back to the roots, trying to understand what our expenses are, what is our way of lifestyle, so that accordingly we can understand how much we are able to save. So maybe perhaps understanding our inflows and outflows would be a good starting point in understanding how we can proceed with savings.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good answer from both of you. So let's look at it. So I want to save, and I go to any consultant and I want to save and tell them that I want to save. Even before suggesting, what is it that you should save, how you should save, and all that, they always tell us that you have to look at something called as a risk profile. Okay, and only after that will be able to suggest anything to you. So what exactly is this risk profile, and what are you trying to assess here?
Okay, so basically, to put it in very simple words, risk profile is understanding how much money one can lose without being impacted by it. I know it is very blunt, but that is basically what risk profile means. To illustrate, let us say Mr. A earns about 100 rupees and he has an expenditure of about 90 rupees. So effectively, he can save 10 rupees. Whereas, let us say Mr. B again earns 100 rupees and he has an expenditure of, let us say, 40 rupees. So he's able to earn 60 rupees. Now, if you are looking at investment style of Mr. A and Mr. B, perhaps Mr. A will think very cautiously before investing and where he's going to invest that 10 rupees. Because if he loses that 10, he stands to lose everything. Whereas at the same time, if Mr. B is investing and if he loses 10, he may not lose much. So that is basically the crux of risk profiling. How much one can lose or how much risk one can afford to take.
Yeah. So to add to that, in finance, what we talk about is higher the risk, higher the reward, right? Which means that the more risk you take, the better returns you're going to get on your investment, right? So as Manoj gave an illustration, a person A saves 10 rupees and person B is able to save 60 rupees. Now, in the case of person A, what we say is that the amount he takes a risk. So he requires a 10 for more, he's more conservative because using the 10, he needs to generate a certain return and ensure that return comes. Whereas Mr. B now has a larger pool of money. So he expects to have a return which is higher because he is ready to take a little bit more risk. So for example, if person A might entirely save only in FD, whereas person B might save 30 in FD, put 30 in mutual fund, 20 in mutual funds, and probably 10 rupees in equity shares. So what person B is doing is taking more risk, which is by buying mutual funds or buying equity, which are more risks, but his immediate expectation of reward goes up. So when we talk about a risk profile, it is at an individual level, we talk about how much money, one, can you afford to lose? B, are you ready to lose, to take the risk? And the higher the risk you're ready to take, the better you would be rewarded. So if you say, I'm ready to lose more money, I don't mind taking a risk here. Instead of framing it as a loss scenario, probably we can frame it as a profit scenario to say that I want to earn more money because I'm having more money in my hand. I expect a better return on my money. So I'm ready to take a higher risk.
I mean, that is okay. But then, I mean, I have more money. That means that I splash around more, I will get more money in return. That's what mean.
So splashing around depends on what you do. If you're going to go around town and party all night, you are not really investing the money. So what we need to differentiate between is expenditure and investment. An investment is something which will create an asset, which will help you get more money or value in the future.
Okay.
Whereas if you're spending something, that it is gone. You spent it today, it is over. If you buy a cake and you have, it is gone. You had the cake, probably you're going to have more expenditure where you're going to go to the gym tomorrow. But as such, it is a dead money where you don't get any other return. The return may be diabetes, which is going to lead to further health costs in the future, but you don't get any other return. Whereas with the same money, you're going and putting it in a mutual fund or even letting it lie in a FD account, it is earning interest or it is earning a certain capital appreciation, which tomorrow you can sell or you can redeem and have more money in your hand to spend. Maybe with that earnings you have additionally got now, you can take that money and go and party or eat cake.
Okay, so we'll come to that very interesting point. We'll come to that little later. So basically, I want to go further back. I mean, more fundamental, more basic. Okay, now you say that saving is okay. Investing. I mean, is there only one way, especially in the times in which we are living in now, pandemic? So probably people are rethinking on what they are doing actually. Like Manoj was referring to lifestyle itself, the way in which they are working, the way, I mean, obviously it must be occurring in many people's mind that how we are going to secure, invest, save our money. So is it
correct
in one particular way or multiple ways? Given by, okay, I have a specific amount of money.
Right. First thing we need to understand is the difference between uncertainty and risk. Uncertainty is in a scenario where you don't know what is going to happen. You are very confused. You have no idea. Whereas risk is a more calculated decision where you are aware, you are able to make a certain prediction and then take a risk on board. So to answer your question, we all would have seen that when the lockdowns were announced, the share markets collapsed, people were very uncertain about what is going to happen. But immediately following that, as more and more clarity came, it became a risky scenario from an uncertain scenario. So we again saw investments going up. That is in a larger perspective. Now, on an individual perspective, I need to look at what is it which I am having today, right? We can categorize expenses as living expenses, which is to maintain your current standard of living and your minimum living, which is the sort of house you're living, the sort of minimum quality of life you're having. And second is lifestyle expenses, which is eating out, going out, partying, going on holiday, all these other things. With a scenario like pandemic or something which is going to adversely affect our income inflow, first thing we do is we start attacking our lifestyle expenses and reducing our lifestyle expenses, where we stop going and eating out, we cook more at home, or we don't party more, or we don't buy certain more shoes. We don't buy 10 pairs of shoes in one shot and stack it up in our house, saying tomorrow one day I'll wear it and go. So we change our behavior that way. Second thing, if I'm still not able to cope, then what I do, I say, okay, I'm living in a large house. I need a smaller house. So I will move to a smaller house. Okay, instead of eating a fancy food, packed food, I start buying something of a lesser quality or a lesser brand name. I start downgrading my living expenses also, one by one, whatever I can, right? So from this, what we are trying to do is we are trying to save money and maintain a certain level of minimum in savings. So when it comes, our perspective into saving usually is we try to calculate what is the residual amount after our living and lifestyle expenses. So when an uncertain situation happens, we become cautious and cut down first on lifestyle, then on living. Thereby, what we are trying to do is maintain some money in hand, whether as per our existing financial plans or now we suddenly realize for next 6 months, I need to survive, I might not get a job. So I need to pay my rent, I need to eat food. What is it I minimum require? So we start moving into that phase where we bring down what is important and try to hold money into our hand and try to assess. This first step is don't panic. First, most important thing is don't panic. You have encountered an uncertain scenario. Try and reason out and reduce to risk. And this is entirely person to person specific, where you understand your life and your risks and you know what is it you require. For example, you cannot stop your child's school fees tomorrow. You will have to prioritize, make certain priorities and decisions in life. So you do that and you decide what is it you're going to do. You put a certain, okay, it's going to take me 6 months to get a job, or it's going to take me 9 months to get a job. And you make a certain estimation, and based on that, you plan.
Yeah, Manu.
Yeah, so to add on to it, basically, Vishesh spoke about necessary spending and discretionary spending. So another way to look at it would also be that, see, when there is a necessary spending, let us take, for example, school fees or loan, despite what happens, despite the circumstances, we will try and figure out something to make it do. But when it comes to saving, we lack that discipline. So we are like, okay, today I don't have money, so maybe I'll not save. Maybe once I get money, I'll try and save. So why not have a look at it as a necessary spending? Like, let us say I have a EMI of 1,000 per month. I will make that payment of 1,000 per month come what may. So let us look at saving in that way. So let us say I am going to save this amount because I know this is the residual cash flow that I have, like how Vishesh explained what a residual cash flow will be. So based on that, let me assume, okay, maybe some percentage of that I will compulsorily save. So that will bring in a discipline. So, and going into what is a mode of, I mean, how you are going to start saving, the idea should be to look at building a portfolio of assets. So the portfolio could be including of a host of assets, something like your fixed deposits or maybe bonds, maybe equities, mutual fund, real estate, bullion, everything. But the goal ultimately should be to build a host of assets. Maybe you will not be able to start all of it today, based on how much you're able to save, etc. So the idea could be to start off with one basket or a couple of baskets and slowly build on it.
Okay. Now, you spoke about various kinds of assets, right? And if you look at it, some of them like real estate are like one-time big bang type of a thing, right? And fixed deposits are well known to all people, are just the bank interest rates. So whenever people are looking at to beat the inflation, to a large extent, especially when you don't have sort of money to buy a plot of land or an apartment, what you're looking at to beat the inflation in terms of savings, you seem to have two options mostly, or one option which is equity, but essentially investing that in two ways. One, either you directly invest in equities or you invest in mutual funds. Right? These seem to be the main options that we are looking at. Of course, bullion does exist. And in India, that is something which people buy often, but it's seen more like, lifestyle thing than though it comes as a saving as a lifestyle more than, and, wanting to sell off bullion is also not seen as a great thing, right? So if you look at mutual funds and equities, the thing is, how does someone decide whether they want to go into directly invest into the equities or should they go through the mutual funds, or what exactly is a parameter people must take into consideration when they decide between these two asset classes, as you guys keep telling us? So what do you think should be the way to go about?
Okay, the easy way to do or choose between the two is the amount of understanding that the person who is investing has. Now, if I'm investing and I have a fair bit of understanding about how equities work, then I might be better off investing directly into equities rather than going through a mutual fund. I am assuming here that when we are saying mutual fund, we are talking about equity mutual fund and not debt related mutual fund. Because mutual fund, to go into a little bit of background, can be either hybrid, which includes equity and debt in some proportion. It can be purely equity or it can be purely debt. So since we are talking more about equities, I'm going to restrict to saying that mutual funds means equity related mutual funds. So
Sure.
now there will be another class of people who do not really have much idea about how the equities work or how the companies behind those equities work. So for them, investing in mutual funds becomes easier because there what they have to ensure is they just need to understand the fund that they are going to invest in. Perhaps to give a bit of more details into it, mutual funds come in different kinds of fund investment related base. Like it could be linked to a let us say equity Sensex, or it could be related to fast growing companies. It could be related to purely FMCG or some specific sector or low risk sector, or there are various kinds of funds that come in. So all the investor needs to look at is what is the fund that he wants to go into. So once that decision is made, he does not have to bother specifically about the specific companies that he wants to invest in. The fund manager or the fund people who are handling the fund will take care of that for him. So he is going to be more of a passive investor in that scenario. And in that case, mutual fund becomes a more viable option for him. As against that, if someone who is more interested in equities or has the time and efforts to actually take some interest in the companies and is willing to invest by himself, then directly investing in equity market makes more sense. Because obviously, when someone else is managing your fund for you, there will be related expenses involved in it. So whatever you're earning will get cut down to some extent by their expenses, and all that comes into picture.
Yeah, Visesh.
Yeah, to add to what Manoj said, see, first thing is anything related to the markets is riskier. And today in the world, the financial markets have grown so much that there are people who doubt whether they are actually linked to real economic theories because they seem to be growing without any rhyme or reason. But having said that, right, it does make sense. If you have the necessary money in your hand to allocate a certain portion, you are going to allocate it to certain market-based investments. And it is not just mutual funds and equities which we talk about. Even your certain products like your ULIP or EPS also have, NPS will also have a certain market-related exposure in it. So you need to understand fundamentally that anything related to the market has an element of higher risk, and against that you're expecting a higher reward. Now, the difference is between mutual fund, equities, and then there's another class of assets called exchange traded funds, which are similar to mutual funds, is the efficiency in which you get the returns. Now, if you're directly investing in a stock, then the risk is higher because it's a single stock and your returns expectation would be higher, and that is what we aim for. How we do this, when we are people who usually invest in shares also do not usually invest in one share. We invest again in our own portfolio of shares, which if you think about it is nothing but like a mutual fund. A mutual fund is nothing but there are a group of shares put together or assets put together and which is invested. So people pool in, it's nothing but where five of us, for example, four of us in this call together pool in, and Manoj is really good at doing it. So we tell Manoj, you please invest on my behalf. Manoj gives us all a unit of ownership based on how much I have invested 10%, Mr. Suresh has invested 20%, and balance is invested by Mr. Rajmohan. He allocates the percentage based on this, and he takes a certain charge, saying that, listen, I am doing all the work. So apart from what my money is earning, I would also like a certain charge out of this, and he gives us the balance. Now, when it comes to equity, we directly invest. We also try to build a portfolio of equity assets, and we try to balance where we are getting the returns. So what this allows us, equity allows us to maximize our returns because we can take on a higher risk than what a portfolio manager would do, because he would be under the, or a mutual fund manager would do, because he will be thinking of a minimum return to give to the investors who have trusted him and given him the money. Whereas when I'm doing it for myself, I can be more greedier in terms of the risk I take. The third class of asset is called exchange traded fund, which is like a mutual fund, but it is traded in the markets itself like an equity share. So if you look at certain people who talk about markets, they do say ETF is the future. So this is a product which people need to understand. ETFs allow you to invest in a bunch of shares like a mutual fund. It is like a mutual fund in that sense. But instead of there being a fund manager who sits and allocates and reallocates and chooses which shares will do better and all that, it is directly benchmarked to an underlying bunch of shares, which is set. So the returns of that set of shares is what you will get as returns in your ETF. So this is another class of opportunity which is available. So to answer your question, what we tell people is, if again, managing your own money requires its own time and effort, right? In terms of gathering knowledge, in terms of sitting there and putting in effort and tracking your investments. You cannot, like how you put your effort into work and you track your work, similarly your money also needs its own tracking. So you need to invest that much amount of time into managing your investments. So if you're a person who's not sure whether you can track something continuously, you in a mutual funds are a better option, because somebody else is doing that for you. But at the same time, you're paying them something to do that indirectly. Okay. The other option is, if you've got time to sit and research on equities and all that, you invest in equities, you learn more, you do that. Equities is riskier because in front of your eyes, you'll start seeing your money go up and down. So you need to have the mental composure and appetite to accept that. ETFs are similar to equity in the sense that they move, it's happening live in front of you every day and you need to be tracking. But they're also like mutual fund, wherein you're at one shot, you're investing in a bunch of shares instead of investing in one particular thing. There are also things like gold ETF, which I think we can talk about when we talk about gold.
Sure. Yeah. So basically that Vishesh, you said uncertain times. Okay, uncertainty. Well, not in a very philosophical sense, but at the same time, mean in the sense in which Heraclitus or Lord Krishna or Buddha refer to, life is a constant flux. It changes all the time. So the life events, everything, time changes. No, it doesn't wait for even a second. What to beat or what the sounds which came out of my mouth a few seconds ago, well, it's gone. So in that sense, future also, we don't know anything about future, right? Already everything is uncertain in life. In future is also uncertain in the sense that we don't know anything. So should the way in which one sees, visualizes, plans, secures, invests money or one's own asset, should it also change with time? From time to time, should it keep on changing?
Correct. So that brings us to something called liquidity, right? Okay. So what liquidity means is how fast you can take your money and use it. What has been invested can be used. So if, for example, your fixed assets today for most practical purposes are very highly liquid. Your savings bank and your fixed assets and cash in hand are highly liquid, which means that I have a problem now. The next second I can take that money and use it for whatever I want, right? Whereas your other investments, your house, for example, you cannot immediately sell your house and you cannot immediately get the money which you want for an emergency, right? So that is in terms of liquidity, which we need to understand. And when we talk about advising people on what to do, we look at a person's liquidity requirements for the near future and then plan based on how liquid they need. For example, I have a chance, somebody old with me or someone going through a certain treatment, there's a high chance I might require funds for their emergency treatment. So I might have a certain amount of money parked in cash and liquid funds at all points because I will want that, and only over and above I will invest it in other things, right? So that is one is liquidity. The second thing is this product called insurance, which everybody more or less takes today because it's a tax saving, which we buy to try and reduce this uncertainty into a risk, which is that yes, at an individual level, my life is very highly uncertain. I don't know whether I'm going to be alive this next second, right? But on the other hand, as a group of people, we all know that, okay, so probability of so many people dying is this. So So together they have a risk assessment and we pay a certain premium. And from that pool of money, which is again in turn invested and returns got and all that, they take, and if something was to happen to me, if I take a life insurance, they will pay. If that uncertain event happens to me, which I've insured against, they will pay out, right? That is the second item which is available in terms of protecting yourself against uncertainty.
Yeah, Manoj.
So yes, see, times will always change, and change is something which is permanent. You can't avoid it. So same goes for our savings plan and investment as well. So maybe on a yearly basis or such a period, it is always advisable to relook at the allocation that is made, the quantum of emergency fund or the liquid fund, as Vishesh mentioned, is made. So maybe initially when you start, you are young, so you figure out 3 months worth of fund is sufficient for me. Then slowly you figure out, okay, no, three is not, might not be sufficient. I require six. Or maybe you are more stable now, so maybe six is not required. I'll come down to four. So a relook or adaptation is always going to be a good part and a good prudent part to consider. And yes, obviously, like he mentioned, insurance is a very critical component to consider for everybody. Today, a lot of us may not look into it, but the certain basic insurance products, which I'm sure we'll be talking about soon, is something that every person has to consider and take up.
Okay.
Yeah, but that means, I don't know. Basically, what okay, from what both of you are telling, okay, I have 100 bucks, okay. Now in this 100 bucks, okay, 50 bucks I put insurance, whatever. Then I do 50 bucks, I put it in something else. Instead of that, is it not prudent to put it in 10 different baskets, 10 rupees each? It will help me, right?
Yeah, definitely. See, more number of baskets will definitely help you, but every basket will have its own requirements. Like every basket may not accommodate that 10 rupees. Certain basket might require a bigger chunk, say 50 rupees. So if you all you have is 100 rupees, you might want to look at baskets that are going to accommodate that 100 rupees. And in that, again, what you have to look at is how much of it is very liquid, how much of it is medium, relatively liquid, and how much is perhaps not so liquid, but is going to perhaps give you a better return.
Yeah, Vishesh.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing which I wanted to mention with, along with the previous point is also we have something called retirement benefits, which is your PF or even NPS and these sort of things, or even for others who don't invest in these things, we have something called PPF as well. So these are again very common products which people invest in. So it comes to answer your question as well. We call this this called mental accounting. Where the second, talking about buckets, it needn't even be various products. You can have 5 different bank accounts where you set aside certain thing, or have a RT which is say I will once it reaches 1 lakh, I will take this and I'll go on a holiday. So that's called mental accounting, where we try and put things into different baskets, right? So it is a question of some people believe that insurance is not needed. I will start from the age of 20. I will take 20,000 rupees, which is probably my insurance premium, and put it into one RD account or a FD account, which will keep accumulating over years. So whenever I need it, I will touch it only for a medical emergency and not for anything else in my life. So such people might not even take an insurance. They will say they are very comfortable with their planning and mental accounting. So these products have evolved over a period of time to help us have certain, it's come from a behavioral point of view where if I have a certain PF account, right? If I get the money in my hand, I might not save for my future. When initially PF was planned, there was a certain life expectancy taken into place, and they decided, okay, we need people are going to retire at 58 or 60. They need this money and they retire for them to plan their future for the next 15 years or so, including their medical expenses and living expenses, and that sort of a scenario. So this is also something which is important to consider when we are talking about buckets. We put it, sometimes there's a nudge, as we call it, from government or from other outside parties to invest in a certain manner, either through tax benefits or to certain laws or something, which is also very important to understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we are seeing about investing in various things, like as you said, RDs are there, FDs are there, gold, and mutual funds, and equities and now exchange traded funds and all that stuff. So the thing is, for these, are there any one single platform which will let us do, or how should we go about doing this? Should we approach each of this individually, or is there a platform, or should there be a consultant? What sort of mode is the best way for someone to do this investment with a reasonable effort? I mean, they don't need to put in too much of effort, right? But yeah, as you said, if you want to get money, you need to put in some effort, but maybe a minimal possible effort. Is there a platform, or what is your suggestion on how we go about that?
Yeah, when coming to understanding products, the first step, perhaps the ideal scenario would be to consult somebody. Maybe an investment consultant or an advisor, or somebody you know in your family who is good with all of this. It could be anybody. It could be formal, it could be informal. Formal might be more suggestible because when you're obviously paying something to someone, there is some accountability. Whereas if you don't pay something to someone and you're getting something for free, obviously there is no accountability involved in it. And tomorrow you cannot go back to them and maybe ask them again or stuff like that. So as a starting point, maybe if you're doing things on your own, maybe at least go once and try to understand what are the different products available in the market at that point of time, and get an understanding before you start doing the investment. Once you have done that, coming to platforms or the way you are doing it, basically your banker and your local post office will cover a big chunk of investment avenues for you. Obviously you will know the different kind of products available, so they'll be able to cover basic investments and saving requirements for you. But above and beyond that, today there are a host of startups who have made it their goal to make investment and keeping track of investment and everything in one platform, and making it extremely easy for you. The onboarding is extremely simple. You just submit digital documents. You have the whole platform in front of your eyes. You know the whole host of charges is transparent, and everything becomes so simple today.
Yeah, Vishesh.
Yes, I agree with Manoj on that. So the thing is, you can always, the best part in the world today is that we have multiple search engines, and then Google obviously dominates, and you can search and find anything you want. So with any knowledge, the problem is knowing what to search, right? So I think this conversation would have at least helped people highlight a minimum amount of what you can search. But over and above, you need to read and understand. Ultimately, any advisor or anybody is going to give you certain ideas, but it is your money and your responsibility to understand and track. So even if you're paying somebody else, they are not going to be held accountable that if you make a loss, I'll reimburse. No registered investment advisor gives you that guarantee. So ultimately, they will only make suggestions from which you choose. If anybody says there is a guaranteed return, then please think twice, because there's nothing called guaranteed return. Not even your bank interest, which I think we'll come to see. So there's nothing called guaranteed return. There's always a certain element of risk involved. As for platforms, earlier times it was much more difficult for you to, or rather there was a certain process involved in going and investing in the markets or buying a mutual fund. Today everything is app based and click of a button. My main suggestion to you would be that all the platforms would be similar. You can compare the costs. You can see many of it will be promotional gimmicks where they give you when you initially come on board. But please see consistently if when you are going to use it, what would be the charges which they charge you. Because SEBI has guidelines for all these things. It is all regulated products. So more or less the commission cannot be greatly different, but there will be some initial promotional gimmicks where they try to bring you on board and to use their platform for their own reasons. So what I would suggest is first create your own portfolio. If, for example, you are going to say, if you're going to be investing in a FD or RD, obviously you do it in your bank, right? You choose your own banker. You probably have one of the public sector banks, or you have a private bank. We also usually say have a private bank and a public sector bank account at least, so that public sector is more secure, private is slightly more riskier. You can do that. As far as your other market-based investments are concerned, first practice. Start learning, right? Choose, say, 4 equity, 4 mutual funds, choose 4 shares. Try to read, understand what is happening there. And imagine you've actually put in money. Would you be happy to lose that money or gain that money every day? Would you be understand your own self, how you react? Because ultimately, when you are having any market-based investment, when would people have liked to take the money out of the share market? On March 23rd or whenever that crash happened. But if on March 23rd everybody wanted their money back, so the value of the shares and everything was pretty low, which means that even though you lose the actual money only when you sell the shares, but when you want it, you are not able to sell it because it is in red, as we say. So you need to understand how these things fluctuate and whether when will your need be and how you want to do. The platform doesn't matter. There are thousands of platforms today with at a click of a button. Every day there are 2 new ones coming, but it is a question of understanding what happens. Because something is easy to do, it doesn't mean it is the best thing to do, right? You're taking on a high, the risk level has not changed. The risk is the same. 10 years back when I started doing all this, when I just got out of school and I just started doing all this, I had to go to a physical broker, somebody we knew. He told me, give me, usual Xerox copy of photocopy of everything, passport size photo, sign. I didn't take a Xerox copy, so he told the staff to go and take. They took 5 rupees from me for the Xerox also, which today is unheard of. Everybody uploads, clicks, 5 minutes you're trading, right? In a matter of seconds, I can lose or make my entire personal wealth, right? So to avoid certain of these things, the regulators are also bringing in certain conditions where you are protected at a minimum, right? So please read, understand what you are doing, and irrespective of the platform you're choosing, right, for any of these investments, please read what is a document they are giving you, what it means. Anyone, whether it is your banker or some advisor or anybody, as much as they have their best interest of yours in their mind, they are also earning by selling that. So always take it with a pinch of salt, right? What is the difference between a 32,000 AC and a 37,000 AC? You and I don't know, but they will tell you a lot of things. Same thing, a person who's telling you this is the difference between this product and that product, until you actually go read what is inside that, you will not know. So second, you are willing to take risk, spend that amount of additional time in reading and learning, and then do investment, whatever it is, depending on the platform.
Yeah.
On whatever platform you.
Yeah, this particular series, if you look, maybe you must have been seeing other episodes as well. This is basically focused on India. Okay, India is a land of many cultures. India is a land of many landscapes. So when we talk about many landscapes, there are 6.5 lakh villages are there. And much of these places, formal financial institutions, well, they don't exist. So much of their savings is, their investment, everything is now, of course, it is changing. Digital economy is slowly creeping into all these rural areas also. But vast majority of the people, well, I don't know how much of what we are discussing right now is applicable to them. So at the moment, at least till now, that what is there, either they invest in land or in bullion. Only 2 things. Are there any further choices which are applicable for this vast majority which are not residing in urban or semi-urban areas?
Right. So let me answer again this in 2 parts. One, yes, there are other avenues available, which is your banks and NBFCs, which give you, banks especially, and post office again, where you can deposit. You can see even post office has come out with its own banks now. So you can save as FD or RD over there. The second factor is, a certain amount of literacy, financial literacy is required for you to invest in riskier assets. If you're not having it, you're better off not doing it and taking on products you don't. Now, second part, when it comes to land and bullion. If a person who is buying a farmland, he is not buying the farmland as an investment, he is buying it as his business asset to do his business, which is farming, correct? So he is making an investment decision, which is a business investment decision and not a personal decision. When you are trying to buy a house, you are making an investment decision, not thinking of doing a business from your house or using it for a business purpose. You are using it to reside. Yeah.
That's why in rural area, what is happening in the last 2 decades. So maybe not before that. What you are saying is true, but the yield from the farming is going down
Correct.
rapidly by the year. So what they are thinking is whatever the money they have earned in the last 10 years, 5 years like that, they are trying to invest in alternate forms of land. See, that is how all this prawn culture, sericulture came into Andhra Pradesh. I mean, it was
Correct.
rice bowl actually.
Correct.
Now it is no more there. So, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So to add to that, irrespective of what is the business they are doing, an investment from a business perspective is different from a personal perspective. Whether they are investing it to do a prawn culture or any other thing, they are trying to generate money by investing and getting a business return, right? And ultimately, land does have a certain security because the amount of land available for specific use and specific categories is limited in India because of our population and all that. So we do look at land as being secure to a certain extent. Second part with gold is that gold has two elements. As Mr. Suresh mentioned earlier, usually people don't buy gold to sell. But if you look at it traditionally, you can still take gold loans, right? So it is a way for people, especially in rural areas, to try and get some liquidity, which we mentioned earlier, which is how fast you can have money in your hand. So most NBFCs and banks today, even in rural areas, have this scheme where you go deposit the gold, immediately they'll give you loan against that. In fact, even against land, if you deposit your patta, you get loans, right? Where you can get for sowing and for 2 seasons. And these are much more relaxed terms than our business loans or personal loans, which you and I take, or our car loans. They have much more relaxed terms and conditions for these things because there's a focus on the rural economy and what has to happen over there. What gold also does is that it builds a certain security because irrespective of whether what happens to the currency we trade in, because ultimately a currency is also a fiction we all equally believe in, right? It is not a real value. It just, the paper is not really worth 100 rupees. It is that we all agree to say it as 100, it is valued at 100 rupees. But gold is again based on our human perception for whatever last 10,000 years or whatever, 5,000 years or whatever, we have built a lot of value into gold, stating that gold as such in itself is a currency and has a value. So by having gold, we feel that our secure is safer because whatever is uncertainty, wherever I'm in the world, I might not be able to give Indian rupees and buy something in US, but I can always sell gold and get US currency, or pledge gold in US and get a loan in dollars, right? So in terms of security, we still look at gold as being a bit more secure. And culturally, it is, I think, I don't know for how long this has been happening, but culturally, we have built this into our system where we look at gold as being an investment and a security. For especially for people who might not directly have income earning potential or something like that, we look at it as saying, okay, you have a gold, we'll give it as an inheritance, pass it along as gold. So that is the two parts which I wanted to add.
Yeah.
Yeah, so gold and land has always been a long-term asset. I mean, it has not been told to us as such, but look at it. No bride who gets the gold is usually going to sell it. I mean, maybe, yeah, it is given as emergency funding, but it has become more of a fashion statement now. Same goes for land. Once you inherit your ancestral property, the chances are that you're probably never going to sell it. You're going to in it, and then you will pass it on. Unless you are perhaps now going to move into a different city is when you'll mostly consider selling it. But again, if you do sell it, you will perhaps be investing in another property in the place that you're going to stay in. Having said that, considering land and gold as investment, see, like Vishesh mentioned about uncertainty and risk. So once we have arrived at the point that the investment is outside the uncertain area and is into the risk area, it means that we have planned for it. So, and once we have planned for it, I think it will make sense to invest in any class of asset despite it having a different label.
Okay, that's good. Yes, here again, just to clarify, I think what Rajmohan also probably meant about land was that investing in land is not for your personal thing, because if you now see the trend in any of the metropolis cities, especially where a lot of IT folks are there, they all have a house and everybody is sort of invested in a second house. You know, it's most like an asset, or they buy a land, a farmhouse, something like that. So in that way, yes, that becomes a more very fixed and sort of not non-liquid type of an asset which is there. So that's one. I think
Suresh, one,
Yeah, I think we are.
your question will be the last. Then we'll have
Correct.
a quick word from both of them, because in addition to whatever time we have scheduled, I also I saw the tweet from Visesh. He's going to stand in front of camera till Sunday 5:30 in the evening. So we have to release him. We have to release him also. That is also there. Yeah. Your question will be the last one. We'll leave it there.
Fine. Fine. Okay. Let me ask this question, because people are in the COVID times. You're all there, right? In the COVID times. In fact, I have two questions, but let me put them together here. One is, of course, it's COVID time, so people may ask, is it necessary now to put your money into something and block it, or should we keep it as liquid as possible? Because you don't know what is the expectancy now, you don't know what's happening tomorrow, and so on. And second, of course, is the insurance part, where should I insure? And secondly, there are a lot of insurance related, equity linked insurance things. So should we go for that? So these are the two questions, right? Should we keep it liquid, and should we go for equity linked insurance, or insurance should be separate?
Yeah, two parts. Part one, we are always optimistic, right? So there is no reason for us to just become pessimistic just because some external event has taken place and something has happened. So yes, if there is something which is available for cheap, if, like we say, right, enter the markets when everybody is in panic and exit when everybody is exuberant. So if the valuations you feel are cheap at this moment, surely it makes sense to invest some portion. Of course, equity always is said that you have to invest in tranches and not go all in. Because we are all aware, all in is a gambling term, and I guess that speaks enough for itself. So invest whatever is possible in tranches. At the same time, keep in mind that the allocation that you have initially made, you are sticking to it. Just because the valuations are very fancy does not mean you put in everything into equity at this moment. Stick to your basics. But yeah, perhaps it does make sense to move around your allocations a bit. Maybe if you are planning on 70% equity and mutual funds, maybe bring it down to 60 or 50 now. But do not stop just because something has changed outside. And coming to the second part about insurance. Personally, my opinion is, see, we have talked about all the insurance products now. So when we have this kind of awareness, do not try to mix insurance as an investment product. Insurance is, like Vishesh said, a product to convert uncertainty into a risk. So let us keep that product for covering our risks. So what will happen then is the premiums that we are paying for that product will go down. The moment it is clubbed as an investment product, obviously the premiums will get higher, your returns will go down. So why get into that complexity? Invest by yourself, insure separately. And talking about insurance as a product, you have to ensure that basically there are three kinds of insurance that it's perhaps necessary for you to take. One would be life insurance, which basically covers your life. Second is medical insurance that is required for any medical uncertainties that you might come up with. Third is personal accident insurance. So let us say tomorrow there is some kind of uncertainty. Maybe you are disabled or you are unable to work for a certain period of time. So this is a policy that will actually help you in such times. Of course, again, going back like Vishesh had mentioned about mental accounting, right? So if someone has the discipline and is able to put out funds in different accounts to take care of these products, then nothing like it. But if we are all there, we might be lazy enough to do it or lack the discipline, then there is a ready-made product. So we might as well opt for that shortcut and go for it.
Sure. Yeah, Vishesh.
Yes, I agree with Manoj on the insurance and investing part together. Keep it separate, do it separately, right? More importantly, what I feel is that we need to have a certain discipline or process we need to develop for ourselves, right? We are going to have a certain policy in terms of how we are going to invest. Now, unlike other people, I don't believe discipline is routine. What is discipline is having a process to check something and whether it is happening properly. In terms of a risky scenario, your discipline should be that I'm not lazy, I'm going to ignore, I'm going to give in to emotions. It means that going and checking where things stand. I think whenever we talk about any investments, we should give a rider saying that we are not giving any investment advices. We are not giving any investment advices here. As far as investing in equity or anything is concerned, my personal opinion is some things are overvalued now looking at the market. Please take it with a pinch of salt. Being consistent helps in doing consistent investments. But at the same time, having talked to multiple people right now, no one is sure why the share markets are going up. And this is a problem not only in India, the same thing is happening in US, UK, across the world. And everyone's predicting a crash, but nobody knows when this crash is coming. So yes, where can you have liquid goes back to your first principle, where ensure you've got enough savings to take care of yourself for the next 6 months, 1 year, for any of your emergencies. Maybe you want to go on a holiday when all this is over and relax. Right? All of us are in very different circumstances, right, in our own personal lives. So ensure you take care of all of that first. Tighten it a little bit more, tighten your belts a little bit more as may be required, because you might have lost some business or your salaries might have come down. Reallocate to all that, and then take the market exposure for the remaining portion, which is still free for you to assume risk. So do it that way, and I think you will be fine.
Sure. Thank you, guys. So since we're running out of time, I will conclude. So here are some things that I learned today, and I guess those who are viewing this program would have also learned. The first thing is, the more risk you're willing to take, the more returns you will expect. Don't think that just because you're taking risk, you will get returns. It's just that when you take more risk, you expect more returns from that particular product. It's not that the product is going to give you more, but it's a possibility. Or at least do not invest in a product which is highly risky but giving you less returns, right? So the idea is, first of all, map your risk profile in the sense that how much, as Manoj very beautifully put it, how much is the money you're willing to lose, how much you will lose without it impacting you very highly. And based on that, you put these in multiple, what is called as asset class, right? That is whether you want to put it in a fixed deposit, whether you want to put it in recurring deposits or post office deposits in one hand, and then the equities. And in the equities, you have multiple things, right? You directly invest, or you invest in your mutual funds or in the exchange traded funds. And as Vishesh mentioned, and Manoj mentioned, if you want to invest in these equities directly, you need to put in that effort to understand how equities work, which nobody can understand anyway, but to at least get a basic idea of how things work, how the companies are, and and make that sort of research before you invest. But if you don't have that sort of a time, pick up a good fund, get to understand what they are doing, what returns they are giving, and invest in the market through these funds. Yes, as Vishesh very clearly said, whether it's pandemic times or other times, always relook at the investment in terms of what is the liquidity that you require. What could be the money that you require? Now in pandemic times, you require more. Therefore, you have to shift your portfolio to ensure that you can get quick access to money, right? But do not stop your saving. You be disciplined and continue saving, whatever be the circumstances. That's what will secure your future. Because if you are looking at very immediate future versus a long-term future, and as Vishesh very importantly mentioned, that the more the life expectancy, the more is your problem in terms of how long you are without work, but still need money for you to continue living a dignified life. So with this, let me thank Vishesh and Manoj for the very illuminating session. Thank you, guys. And all of the others watching this, please keep watching the series, All Things Indian Friendly Voices. Thank you.
Yeah, that everyone process whatever we listen, whatever we see in our own way, in our brains. So from what I see is Vishesh online advice, like Vadivelu is, risk sa parama edutha, your future will be gold. Okay, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.